Hello, I'm Victoria Schaefer, and thank you so much for joining us for Joni Patry's 2016 World Predictions. We've had so many requests asking when this was going to be available, and here it is. It's available, and we are so happy to present this to you because 2016 is going to be a momentous year. Am I right, Joni?
You're absolutely right, Victoria.
You know, I thought I would start by just going over quickly a couple of the really big hits that you had in 2015 with your predictions that we did on this video this time last year. There were some truly amazing ones that I think we should mention. The first one is that the very number one country that you focused on in your world predictions last time for 2015 was France, which was very unusual because you just don't anticipate France having a lot of activity going on in it that would warrant it to be at the very top of your world predictions as far as your countries go. But it was, and it was, now we all know why. You saw it, you predicted it, you were absolutely on top of it. Another prediction that you had was that there would be a king come into being last year, and you were not sure if it meant the birth or if it meant someone coming into power. And what happened? Donald Trump comes on the scene just when you predicted it to happen in the summer, which there's no doubt that, love him or hate him, he has changed the political landscape in the U.S. presidential election coming up. There's just, that was an amazingly accurate prediction on your part. Something else you did down to the very week that it happened was the prediction of finding an airliner that had been lost, and that airliner was the Malaysian Flight 370 that was found in the Indian Ocean. Parts of it were found, unfortunately, in the Indian Ocean. You nailed that so accurately down to the week that I was stunned when that happened. I mean, I shouldn't have been because you hit it so right so many times, but it was just amazingly accurate. You also nailed the stock market, saying that it was going to have a crash but then bounce right back. And I mean, it was almost every single month and sometimes several times in a month. There would be so many accurate things that you had predicted during our video that we did this time last year that was right on the nose, Joni. So we are all looking forward to hearing what you have coming up in your predictions for us for 2016.
Okay, well, this is probably an even more eventful year than last year. This year has so many astrological combinations that it's astounding, really it is. This will be a year that marks some of the biggest changes that we've experienced in our lifetime. I'm absolutely positive of that. Many astrologers we can't believe it, but let's get to the point. And first of all, for those that do know some astrology, I will go over some of the rhyme and reason why I'm getting what I'm getting, but then I'm going to really give a message because we need it this year. Okay? And I wouldn't be an astrologer if it wasn't here to help humanity and mankind. That's what true astrology is used for. So we start out with January. And January, we have a combination of Jupiter coming together with Rahu. Now, Rahu represents the head of the dragon. It represents our mind, our consciousness. And when you put it together with Jupiter, they are colliding at 29 degrees. And what's so important about this is 29 degrees is the last degree of a sign. So it represents endings. It represents the end of something. Jupiter stations. In other words, it's stopping before it goes retrograde. And I think the fact that it stops at this degree point with Rahu is so meaningful. So what it's doing essentially is creating enormous fear, because Rahu is fear, and it's for the masses. And they're in Leo. Leo is the sign of the king. Leo is the sign of the rulers, of leaders. So there is something so imperative and important to note this year about leadership in the world, and something eventful is about to take place concerning leaders. I have said numerous times that this is the year that we will see some leaders step down, leave office, or maybe or simply have to leave office. I don't want to say anything very dreadful, but something enormous that is going to put the world in chaos is about to transpire this year. And the marking turning point is in January, when they come together at the very end of Leo. And also when I made the prediction that a king is born, that was when Jupiter entered Leo, and it was where they came together, Venus and Jupiter. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump has an astrologer, because to announce his run for the presidency on that day was huge. I mean, somebody knows what they're doing. And I want to say this about Donald Trump, like you say, love him or hate him, he has changed the way we look at politics. But as I believe astrology represents as above, so below, everything that's going on within us is projected outwardly. Whether you believe it or not, it's a fact. So as above, and this is relative to astrology, as below. So it's all that's within us, our consciousness, that's being projected. And I believe with the Donald Trump coming into the world, we all were tired of politics. We were all tired of the way politicians act and behave. What if they came out and said what was on their mind? What if they weren't political? We all, on some respect, ask for this. So we better be careful what we ask for subconsciously, because that's what we receive. So you see, this is all a projection playing out. Some people like to say it's our shadow selves, but look at it as an opportunity to see ourselves more clear, because it's truly what's going on. This is our projections of what's going on within us. And of course, we can change that, and that's the real opportunity that this year offers, that we're able to change the world consciousness by changing ourselves. This is incredible, and I'll get to different points with the astrological aspects. So what's coming up, aside from what's happening in January, is there is going to be a T-square that involves a solar eclipse degree, which happens in September at 15 degrees of Leo, and Mars and Saturn are going to conjoin at 15 degrees of Scorpio, and they will be squaring exactly the point in Aquarius where Neptune comes together with K2 at 15 degrees of Aquarius. These are all the fixed signs at the point which is most powerful, 15 degrees of a fixed sign. It actually represents the changes relative to the most powerful fixed stars of all, which in Taurus is Aldebaran, Leo is Regulus, Scorpio is Antares, which, by the way, we're going to talk about as the star of war. That's where Saturn and Mars will conjoin. And Fomalhaut is the point in Aquarius. These fixed stars are called the royal fixed stars, and they have depicted huge change in all of history. So just to back up, going month by month, in January we have this amazing configuration in Leo, Jupiter coming together with Rahu, that creates massive fear globally. And Mercury is going to go retrograde, which causes more confusion to the picture. So that's what I'm foreseeing with the month of January. And I want you to know that January 23rd as well as the 29th are the times that Jupiter exactly comes together with Rahu. So those are enormous points of fear and transformation that will be occurring. So if you want, I can go ahead and continue month by month throughout the year, because February is the month that Mars will shift into Scorpio. And the important thing about this year that adds so much, chaos and really violence. This is a year of great violence because Saturn and Mars will come together. Now, this happens once every 2 years, not a big deal, but not with Mars turning retrograde conjunct Saturn. So in other words, when Mars station stops, it's turning retrograde in the sign of Scorpio. So it enters Scorpio in February. And that'll be around February 20th when Mars will enter into Scorpio. But it's going to be that when it comes together close to Saturn, or when it stations, is going to be the most powerful time for this. Mars will station around 14 degrees of Scorpio, and that means it stands still before it goes retrograde. And this is almost exactly conjunct the fixed star Antares, star of war. So things are going to start getting really heavy and heated up this spring, but the fall will be the most intense. So I'm looking at a solar eclipse that happens in March. The solar eclipse happens around March 8th. And this is such a powerful eclipse because it's conjunct Ketu and it's conjunct Neptune. And anytime we have Neptune involved, it means secrets come out, deception, deceit, denial. And there's been so many things that have been hidden from us globally in the world that we have to take note of how this is going to transpire. I think in terms of government, leadership of the world, things have been hidden from us. Even things financially in the stock market, the truth will be revealed. This is the most important year where truth is definitely going to come out. So I'm looking at the solar eclipse. This will occur around 24 degrees of Aquarius. And remember, I'm talking about the sidereal zodiac, not tropical Western astrology. And at this degree, it comes very close to Neptune, means secrets are going to be revealed. And in this eclipse, I want you to know that it happens in the nakshatra called Purva Bhadrapada, and its symbol is a man with two faces. What does that represent? It can mean two-faced. It can mean people that are not honest. And of course, this is dealing with leadership and government around the world, not just in the United States where we are. This is happening in the Middle East. This is happening in Europe. All of the truth is about to be exposed. And that is, I think, the powers that really control the world. And like I said, some people that are brought into leadership may somehow have to step down or be forced down or eliminated because they are not following along the lines of the powers that really are in control of things these days. So looking at this, I want you to know around March 23rd will be the time that Saturn will square Jupiter. And anytime Saturn squares Jupiter, this affects the economy. So right after the eclipse, March 23rd, we're going to see, because of fear, mass fear, people become frightened. And guess what happens in the stock market? But let me remind you, the stock market will never, ever be a complete, total crash again. Why? Because there's so many billionaires in the world. And when stocks get low, the prices go down, guess what? The people with the money start buying again. So I know that there's radical shifts in fear, but it's never, ever going to be like, a 1929 stock crash. There's no way. There's too many people that are wealthy that like when stock goes on sale. But do remember that around that March 23rd, that's going to be a time when the stocks start to go down, and we'll be in a down cycle for a while.
And so, Joni, would that be a good time to buy stock, in your opinion, or just to ride it out?
Some of the stocks that the people that I work with that are the best in the stock market say we make the most money when the stock market's down. So if you're able to buy in and ride the wave, I wouldn't say buying stocks that aren't valuable stocks, but the stocks that are valuable, they're going to go back up. And I keep saying this, with the prospect of serious war looming, because I get that in August it looks the most treacherous. The fact that anytime we go to war or there's serious war around, there will probably oil and gas stock or have to go back up. It's at the lowest price right now. It could tend to go down a little bit more at this phase in March, but trust me, by the fall or next year, and you'll be glad you purchased oil and gas stock at the low price that it is right now. We need fuel, and especially at the times of war, we need fuel the most. So I want you to be cognizant that these are the stocks, especially the large companies. The smaller ones are going to go out, but the big companies will gobble them up because of the pricing. That's just been the law of nature. So did you have any other questions about the stock market, Victoria?
Well, it just sounds like that if it does take that big dip, as you're saying, it's just going to pop right back up, and just be aware that that's going to happen.
Yes. It's going to be up and down throughout the year. So, don't get too greedy. If it goes up to a place where you're comfortable, sell out and buy in again when it goes down again. I mean, it's like these are the times that you can make the most money. It's just people become so afraid that they're afraid to sell and they're afraid to buy. So everyone's kind of stays stuck. But I guarantee the ones that have the money to spare, they'll double their income. So continuing on, let me just continue on to the month of April, because this is going to be where Mars stations at 14 degrees of Scorpio. April 17th is actually the date. Watch. There's going to be intensity around war, violence, anger, aggression, even in your own personal life, be aware, because this goes to the heart and core of who we are. This is fear. This is Saturn. This is Mars. We feel like the world is falling apart. And you know what essentially it is, but things need to be sort of like destroyed before they can be rebuilt. This is the year for this. So I'm getting that Saturn, March 25th, Saturn will station, and then April 17th, Mars will station at 14 degrees of Scorpio. And like I said, this is such an important degree. Expect blow-ups, expect people being full of anger, attacks. All of these things will happen around this Mars station. And what's so interesting around this time, this day that Mars stations, Pluto stations at the same time. And Pluto, I don't want to scare people, but Pluto does rule nuclear energy. So you've got both of these planets of war and violence stationing. This will be around this April 17th day. But continuing on through May, May will be where K2 crosses over the solar eclipse degree that happened in March. Anytime we have planets cross over these marks, it represents an event. It's like I tell people that eclipses are one of our most powerful tools for prediction, but it's like that degree that the eclipse occurs on, when a transiting planet later on crosses that degree, that's what marks an event. And that was exactly what happened on the day of the Paris attacks, when Mars and Rahu came together, and they crossed over that degree of the previous eclipse. K2 was on the degree of the previous eclipse that had happened earlier in that year, and that created the attack on that day. So May is a turning point. Let's see, it's the 27th that K2 will cross over the previous solar eclipse degree of 24 degrees of Aquarius. And it's a time of loss. It's a time of possible tears, because K2 does deal with losses and letting go and sadness. And it is also one of the biggest determinants of spiritual transformation. That's what will transform this year, and that we have the greatest opportunity for spiritual transformation in our own lives. And this is the benefit and the opportunity that we have. So then looking at June. June around the 18th, Saturn will square Neptune. Now, Neptune also represents oil and gas. So there could be a plunge concerning this, but what I think is happening is that there's something about maybe the Middle East and disruption concerning oil and gas, maybe explosions where the oil fields are in the Middle East. This is relatively important to know about, because I believe that there's certain countries in the Middle East that are very, very prominent that are going to strike out and cause great problems. If we go back to the last time that Rahu and Jupiter conjoined in Leo with Saturn, it was 1979. And that was the year that, you know, if you saw the movie Argo, this was the Iran crisis where, you know, they had the prisoners, American prisoners, and something similar to this is definitely possible at this time, and it will involve oil and the Middle East. Let me just put it that way. But Saturn squaring Neptune brings out reality. Saturn's reality, Neptune's illusions. So it breaks the illusion, and we all know really where we are and where we stand. This square of Saturn to Neptune will occur again September 10th, and this is the waking up of reality. So get ready, because oil prices will be jacked up soon with all of the craziness that's about to transpire in the world. I get, though, that there's somebody in the Middle East, a leader, that will be at the core essence of what is happening in the world. And this is going to, and the illusions of the corruption will be revealed at this time. So once again, I want you to know that 15 degrees is the most powerful point in a chart of a fixed sign. If you'll notice in Vedic Astrology, for those of you who know Vedic Astrology, it is the point where it will be Virgotama, even in the Navamsha, 15 degrees. So it is so deep, it's so powerful. They say it even represents the archangels. And in the tarot, if you notice in the card for the tarot, for the world, they have the symbols for the fixed signs, the Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, and what's the other one that I missed? Scorpio, which is actually the eagle in the card, but this is representative of the power of these signs that are activated incredibly strong this year. So then moving on, I think June will be a break. June will be a short break. So between June 8th and July 12th, Mars will be in Libra. So it gives us a little breather. So if you have to travel, I think June may be the time to have some travel plans. July, things will start to heat up again, because July 12th, Mars enters Scorpio, once again intensifying things. But what I really like to say about this year, it's a year of humanitarianism, because as these things occur, people start to wake up that we have to help one another. We cannot be at odds and be critical or judgmental, because this will add more fire and more fuel to the problems that are going on. Now, August, I think, is the most treacherous, personally, because in August, well, for one thing, August 11th, Jupiter will enter into Virgo, which will change the economy. I don't think too much for the better. But I want you to know that around August 13th, Saturn stations at 15 degrees of Scorpio, conjunct Mars. That is huge. And as I keep exemplifying how important that degree mark is, and they will be squaring Neptune at the same time. So, and Mars will square Neptune. This jacks up the price of oil every time around August 25th. So watch that, because then again, August 24th, when Mars conjunct Saturn, then squares Neptune. This is the time of deception, deceit, illusions around world leadership, and possible explosions will occur. Okay, so September 1st, we have a solar eclipse again. But this time, guess where it occurs? 15 degrees of Leo. I mean, this is just like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. So, solar eclipse at 15 Leo, Mars, Saturn at 15 Scorpio, and Neptune K2 at 15 Aquarius. Incredible T-square that creates enormous effects globally. And I think September is a huge turning point. This is where we're starting to wake up to the severity of what this year is truly about. And you know what? We're coming around full circle to the time of the presidential elections. This will be incredible chaos. It is going to be a different election than ever before. I don't even know if it's going to be a normal election with all that's transpiring at this time. So, but there's good news, really good news around this time, because remember, where there's the greatest darkness, there's the greatest light. And I believe incredible inventions are about to come out. Some of the inventions in the fall will come particularly maybe around October and September, the end of September, because there's a Saraswati Yoga towards the end of September. And what this is all about, Saraswati, is when Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus come together and they create times of great creativity. So movies, art, music. And you know, when times are intense, people make the greatest music because it comes from their hearts. It comes from their soul. I mean, the 60s. And that's something I didn't mention, which is very relative to this. The late 60s are very, very much like this time and this year. Because in Chinese astrology, we have the year of the red monkey, the fire monkey, which starts in 2016. If you go back to one of the times that it was the year of the fire monkey, it was 1968, the year that we had the most extreme chaos and calamity going on with assassination after another and fighting and disruption. This year will be similar because that whole 60s was reminiscent of the Pluto-Uranus conjunction around that time, and now we have them in square aspect. They are almost exact, but this is the last time that this aspect is really coming about. And in the month of October, I want you to know Uranus and Pluto will be squaring, and it will be activated by Mars. I'm looking at around October 29th, there could be the possibility of nuclear energy and attacks if things aren't taken care of. Because during that time, when Mars comes together with Pluto, it will be squaring Uranus. And it's like Mars is the activator of that Pluto-Uranus square. It's huge. Around November, I'm looking at, this is the time, November 17th, is when K2 will conjunct Neptune. This is the time of spiritual transformation. And I want everyone to know this is beautiful. This will be the year of some of the grandest experiences. Because really, no matter what, we're talking about war, we're talking about the economy, what is the real reason why we're here? It is our spiritual transformation. It's moksha. Moksha is our liberation from this world. And that's what we're here to find out. And this is the year that moksha is possible for so many if you're open to change, if you're open to learn. And I don't know about you, but I'm definitely open to that. Okay, so November the 17th. This is such a powerful time. And another thing is, you know, Neptune coming together with K2, it represents oil again. So there's this thing about oil and the realization that we need to have other means of energy aside from this. And people will be working more intensely to find ways to really alleviate this issue and dependency on oil per se. And another thing, like I said, this year is where the greatest light is. There will be cures for disease. There's cures for mental disease, which can deal particularly in the area of addictions and problems. This will come about around November, a great understanding to mental problems. We don't understand the mind, but this is what's about to happen. And when I said there's also going to be inventions of a major source, time travel, or the way that we travel, there will be inventions to great speed. And I've heard that, that they're taking the way that we travel. Trains can go even faster, because I think it's Elon Musk has come up with ways that they're starting to travel with trains that are like similar to the black hole energy, where it's a void in it and it really sends and travels quicker. These are great discoveries that will be taken to the furthest extent this year. So bringing us full circle into the month of December, next Christmas Day, Mars will conjunct K2. This is the most serious indication of terrorist attacks. And this will involve some terrorism, of course, in the United States, which we'll talk about when we go to the countries. But Mars will cross over Neptune in K2. It will cross over Neptune around the 30th, moving into the next year of 2017. But Mars will conjunct K2 on Christmas Day. So this is very dangerous. To add insult to injury, the way that next Christmas and the way the year ends next year will go out in a big finale, which is not the way I want to see things. So basically, I think I pretty much gave you a pretty dire look at this year. But like I said, we do have free will. We do have choice. And I think, if I might say, the message for this year is it's time to take back your control and your power. And we're angry because we've given that away. We've given that away. We expect leaders to take over and to cure all of our problems, when it's really within all of us that we have to look for the inner place for change, and not let others, not give our power away. You see, we give our power away so often when we point our fingers outside of ourselves and say, this is the cause and the reason why I'm in this predicament. You're the reason. Looking at our parents, looking at our spouse, looking at our friends. But in reality, you have to take back responsibility and not be a victim anymore. And by doing that, what we do is what we're taking within ourselves, the responsibility, that's what will be projected outside. You see, in the world, all the leaders are pointing fingers at each other. Nobody's taking responsibility. Why? Because that's what we're doing. And once we start taking control and our power back and realizing that we have a choice and we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves, this is how we're going to have the greatest effect on the world. And this is the transformation of consciousness, being open to the possibilities that we are in control of our own destiny. And by taking our control and power back, by not being a victim anymore, we can change our life, and this will be reverberated through what's going on in the world. So what's out there is within us, and we have the control and the power to change things.
Wow, Joni, that's, you have the light and the dark that you're seeing for 2016. I have a couple of questions. You say that free will is involved, which of course it always is. Mm-hmm. And as we look at those really dangerous times of August through the first half of September, and then again right on Christmas Day, is this where you're seeing free will coming into play in terms of the potential for, as you were saying, nuclear involvement? Is this something that free will could help us avoid?
I want to say yes. I believe that we can change things, but sometimes when I go back and I look at the events that occurred throughout history, you wonder, such as the assassination of Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, you wonder if if humanity was meant to experience some of these things, sometimes I think with the momentum of where we are, things just have to play out. But it's because it's bringing us to our greatest realization. People started to wake up when this stuff started happening. As horrible and horrific as it is, sometimes we can't see the big picture of what it is and what we're here to grow through and experience, and how this is really all a dream, and where we're headed to is the realization of ourselves through all of this calamity and disruption. But on an individual basis, it doesn't have to be this horrendous. And that's where I want everyone to take this on an individual basis. And I'm not saying to disregard what's happening out there, but I'm saying to take the responsibility. This is an opportunity to truly represent who we are within. And if you're getting like all excited about this political drama that's about to unfold, then you're not where you need to be, because it's not out there that we have the control over other people, but control within ourselves. And I think people, of course, if you'll notice, around the time of the elections, around the time of December, everything is out of kilter in the world. And I think this is all about the elections. People become so emotionally vested in who they think can change the world in consciousness. But no, they cannot let this control their lives. It's within us. We have the power to change our lives. And if you work there, it will be reflected out there. But the outside circumstances, for those that are unconscious, will just play out. We have the ability to be aware and to be conscious. And yes, there's not a lot of people that will listen to this, but those that do, their life is going to change for the better. That I can guarantee.
Such awesome advice, Joni. Well, let's take a look at the countries, because you were so accurate last year when we spoke about what was coming up for individual countries. And of course, I think we should start with the United States, because you mentioned that in terms of having the potential for an attack, which since September 11th, 2001, we have thankfully not had anything like that happen in the U.S., but yet we all realize that the potential is there. So this, once again, you're seeing the potential for this to happen. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. The United States is one of the, of course, regions in the world that are going to be most affected. I know there's going to be something involving airlines again, possible attacks and travel problems throughout, because this is affecting the third house of the United States chart that I use. Third house represents travel, communications, and another thing is how the media is controlling all of us. You know, you put on the news, what do you see? All I see is politics. I have to change the channel to see what's really happening in the world, because it's not reality. You know, every time I put on the news, it's Trump versus something versus, and it's not reality. You know, I want to know what's really happening in the world. So don't get so sidetracked by all of the political nonsense that the media wants us to know. So this will be revealed, the way that they're deceiving and controlling our consciousness. But the other thing is there is the possibility of attacks with airlines. And yes, I think the East Coast is the most vulnerable to big attacks in the U.S. once again. So there's going to be some major outages. There's going to be incredible problems in the U.S. and fighting and anger, and I think it's definitely going to be because of the politics and the political drama that is about to take place. That's going to cause so much havoc in the United States.
So, and just so that all the viewers will know, they can get a printed transcript of your predictions on astrologicmagazine.com, and by going there you can see all of this that that Joni's talking about, and get a printout so that you can have all of the details as she has given it to us today. Okay, Joni, so tell us about Russia. Tell us what's coming up for Russia.
Well, and one thing I wanted to add to what you said, Victoria, is some of the things that we have predicted throughout this year came out in AstroLogic Magazine, because I do a month-by-month, day-by-day analysis of what's going on in the magazine. And when you get this printed transcript, you'll have everything in the dates and the times as well that I have logged down to be, because you may forget. You watch this one time, you may forget, but if you have it printed out, look at it on your calendar, you'll be more aware of when to avoid certain things. So you want to know about Russia. Russia, Putin, I feel like he is going to have a rise to power. He is going to be more powerful. And this comes to play because of things that will be happening in the Middle East. But I do get that there will be attacks on airplanes in Russia once again, which has happened last year, as well as some of their military aircraft and things. There's going to be many attacks. But essentially, Russia will have more of a rise through all of this calamity and problems.
Oh, and thank you for mentioning about AstroLogic Magazine, because it truly, every month I am just amazed at reading your predictions and how accurate they are. And that's where it has become so obvious to me how many times you are accurate in all of this information that you're giving out. And again, it's astrologicmagazine.com for anyone seeing this who's not familiar with it. Joni, tell us about what's coming up for France. It was at the top of your list last year, and I know you have some thoughts about it for 2016.
Well, one thing about France is I think the worst is over. Of course, there is going to be a lot of trouble there, but I get that the enemies that they foresee at least are open enemies. They know where to watch. They know where to be protected. They're in the know now after this one attack, even though I do think it's very volatile there for the first half of the year. The second half of the year, I don't think it is as severe as we've just seen. So I think they're not as bad as it was.
That's really so good to hear. I'm really, that's such good news. And what about Iran? I know you have some thoughts about that. What's coming up for that country as well?
Well, Iran, they have important degree markings in their chart that are connected to this T-square in fixed signs. So they are going to have major issues. They're going to have major problems, particularly around war and particularly specifically around oil and their control with oil. Like I said, there's a lot of similarities to the year of 1979 as to this year of 2016. So they will definitely be major problems there, particularly around finances, oil, gas, and war.
And what about Iraq?
Iraq will feel so totally unsupported that it's falling apart. It's falling completely apart, and no one's there to help and pick up the pieces. That's the major problem I see with Iraq.
Big stuff there, Joni.
Yeah. It would be financial ruin, too, because of it.
Wow. And what about Israel?
Israel's not as bad off. The past 2 years, Israel was under enormous stress and pressure. And amazingly enough, it's going to be a little bit more quiet there, so I don't see the friction as much in Israel this year.
That's good news for them. And tell us about what you see coming up for Germany, because that's usually such a solid, reliable country. What's coming up?
Germany has degrees that are connected to the eclipse, so I'm worried about Germany more than anywhere else in Europe. So there's going to be major problems. There's going to be attacks in Germany. I see major problems for the leadership, the government, and president there. There may even be something where there's major problems for the president. Of course, the country's going to be in turmoil. So I really, really think there's going to be problems and even loss of life in Germany. And this may have something to do with all the refugees and things that are going there.
Yes, I know the chancellor has had a lot going on, has had a lot on her plate, so it will be really interesting to see what's going on in 2016. What do you see coming up for North Korea?
There, anytime, I know it's funny that we laugh, which isn't funny, but major problems. They're just so intense. They just, anytime they get a chance to make some noise, they will. But major problems. But I do see the rise and fall in their leadership. So maybe there's going to be a break here where it's not, the usual we're going to bomb everyone kind of stuff, but they are someone to be watched. They are definitely dangerous, but I do see a big change in the government there.
Again, that's some good news. And Libya, what's going on with them in the coming year?
There is going to be some reversals, major reversals. Watch the government. The government will change. People will step down, and this will be pretty much, I think, the better. But there's going to be a fall first that will create a better world for them, but only through just a lot of destruction.
Afghanistan, another place that has had so much turmoil for decades. What's
major loss, major war, major destruction. The thing about Afghanistan is there's some secret enemies that are about to come out and that have been hidden, and through revealing what's been secret, then they have better opportunities to be able to get to the cause and the reason of what's been going on there. So essentially, there's going to be a turnabout for the better later, but it will be very, very difficult for now.
And I know you know so much about Turkey on a personal basis because you do so many workshops there and you've traveled there so many times to do readings and personal appearances. What do you see coming up for them?
Oh, I love Turkey, and I love the people of Turkey, but their government is really going to go through some major change. So there is a crisis that will originate there. There is great corruption, and I get that there's going to be a major turnover there. So this will initiate a big change throughout the world. It's almost like they're a hub for world transformation, and this will reverberate through the world, create many changes in the world. Turkey will set the example for the world. They are going to be the trends and the leaders, and in many respects down the road in the future. So everyone eyes need to be on Turkey. They will be our leaders in the sense of setting the rules and the many changes to come globally.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about China, what you see coming up for China.
Complete reversal of their leadership. So things will improve in China. I mean, it may go through a major imbalance for most of the year, but overall, because of the shift in leadership in China, expect good things to evolve later. But they are going to be in control, and yes, they're going to take over many other lands and countries, but the shift in the leadership will make it a better place later. Okay?
That's great to hear. And India.
Okay, India I love. So India, there's the major eclipse that's going to affect this country this year. And what I get is there's going to be great strides, even more so in their education and in their technology. It's coming up in the world. But because of the crises in the world in terms of the financial crises, of the up and down, India will suffer as well. But do know that they are really changing, and they're becoming more powerful. And because of their growth, because of the way that they're expanding their education and their learning, people are going to all eyes are going to be focused more towards India. But like I said, the economy will suffer as a result of the world economy.
Mm. What and speaking of economies, what about Brazil?
Brazil, I want to make a major emphasis here. The Olympics will be in Brazil, the next coming up Olympics. And Brazil will probably be one of the hot spots for violence and disruption. So I'm really concerned about what's about to transpire in Brazil, because let me tell you, they are going to be under attack. Okay? And what I think is their president, their leaders, that they must be very, very careful, and they should be very careful around the time of the Olympics, because that's going to be the time that I see the most havoc, chaos, and problems and violence occurring in that country.
What's coming up for England that you see next year?
England, I really didn't see a lot. England's going to be kind of, not at peace. There is no place to be of total peace, but I don't see any major events happening in England, so I think they're okay, but do be cautious.
And what about Greece? They've had their fair share of economic problems.
Greece, it's going to be just like the way it is now. It's going to be the way it is throughout the next year. So it's kind of like no major ups, no major downs, but it's just going to be even keel, which is better than the way it's been before. Mm-hmm.
That's good. And what about Japan?
Okay. Wow, Japan. I have had a website in Japan for 15 years, so I'm always working on looking at their government and their economy as well as earthquakes. I was able to predict the month before that massive earthquake, March 11th, 2011. I said that was the month it was going to happen, and it did.
I remember.
And so what do I see for Japan this year? More earthquakes. It's going to be there's going to be more shaking and, problems there, major shakeups to the land. I can't even believe that they'd have another earthquake of that magnitude, but it is definitely possible. And I just get that because it's their ascendant is exactly the degree where Saturn and Mars come. So they could even be attacked. This is a very volatile place, Japan. So I wish I could say differently, but that's what I see.
And then I know that you had some thoughts about the path of the eclipses that are going to happen next year.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's so interesting to watch what we call eclipse paths. Eclipse paths are where the eclipses are most visible on Earth, and therefore these are the regions of the world that are affected the most in the coming year, particularly with violence and with storms, major storms, severe weather, and earthquakes. And the eclipse path goes over the Hawaiian Islands, so this concerns me. The Hawaiian Islands are going to be really under undue stress with severe weather, with earthquakes, maybe even tsunamis. So, this is something to be watched and to be careful of. And I don't know how you can prepare for that, but if there's a way, it needs to be done. The eclipse path will cover over the Pacific Ocean, where the Hawaiian Islands are, around Tahiti, Indonesia, Singapore. All those regions are under severe watch. The Hawaiian Islands, these are not good places to go for vacation, but if you're living there, take heed and caution. Make sure if you hear storms are coming, take it seriously. Board up places because it's going to be more severe than normal. And so there's the March eclipse that is severe, that the eclipse path goes over where I just mentioned, and then the September eclipse path will cover the same area of Indonesia, the South Pacific, And also Africa, down the Central Africa, around Nairobi and Kenya and Madagascar, all those places come under the stress of this eclipse path. So remember that these are places of severe weather and storms as well.
Well, Joni, 2016 sounds like it's going to be a year of tremendous trials and upheavals, but also has the potential for every single one of us to grow on a spiritual level and to an enormous degree. And we just, it sounds like that is what we must do. That sounds like that's what is our destiny for 2016, and to come out on the other side of all of the trials that it sounds like we're headed for. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, this is a year of humanity, so we have to recognize that we are all one and we are all connected. And, you know, just to be kind, to be in gratitude, these are things we should always be thinking about. But particularly this year, we have to come from a place of being kind to one another, respecting other people, respecting that it all comes from within. It comes from the heart energy. Because remember, you know, all these configurations are starting in the sign of Leo. Leo rules the heart. So when we come from a place from our heart, where we truly love and respect and are kind and appreciative and gratitude to one another, this is the only way that we can change and make this world a better place. And this has to be our intention this year if we want this world to be a better place that we live in.
Thank you, Joni. Thanks for those great words and for taking all the time that I know that you must to look into the charts of all the countries and to all of the months and everything that goes into putting these predictions together. It's something, and we really appreciate you doing that. And to all of the viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Joni and I really appreciate you tuning in to watch this. And it's created to give you insight and to help guide you and to help you make better choices as you go forward in 2016. You can always join us on astrologicmagazine.com to get more information and get the current issue of the magazine, but you can also, there's so much more. Joni's 2016 sun sign predictions are available on astrologicmagazine.com. The predictions that you've just heard will be available, and her monthly predictions, which are astounding and go into even more detail than what she just did. So astrologicmagazine.com, and thank you so much for joining us, and Happy New Year.